Alright, so in this video lecture, we're going to talk about a very important analogy that is going to help us link together some of the organelles. Previously, we have discussed how important systems are to living things. And remember, a system is just an organization of things made up of related parts. Okay, for example, your digestive system is able to consume and process nutrients to go into your body's cells because it is made of a bunch of different organs that do different jobs, like your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, and your intestines. Each of those organs has a separate job to do, but together they perform the greater function of the digestive system. In your cell, we have this as well, and that is called the endomembrane system. So I like to start this lecture by looking at an analogy as though we are building bears in a bear making factory. So let's take a look at this flowchart I have here on the page. It says that the factory boss contains the instructions for how to build bears. The instructions are copied and given to the floor manager. Okay, so in a factory, we always have somebody who is in charge and someone who knows what we are going to be doing. That is just like the endomembrane system's organelle, the nucleus. Okay, so in a cell, the nucleus contains the instructions for how to build the protein. And then those instructions get copied from the DNA that's in the cell into a disposable copy of the gene called mRNA. So those are both nucleic acids. It's just that we keep the DNA inside the nucleus at all times. So if we want to access it, how do we use the gene information in the ribosomes? We're going to make a copy of the gene we're interested in. All right, so the factory boss is like the nucleus, right? They're both in charge, and the reason they're in charge is because they contain instructions for how we're going to build the thing. All right, so next step. The floor managers are going to transport those instructions from the boss's meeting to the factory room. So now we're moving to the factory. The workers will use the instructions and build a basic bear shape. Okay, over here, while it doesn't look like it, we have a bear, right? We've built the main pieces of our, our stuffed animal. So what is that going to be like here? That's going to be like the ribosomes. So the instructions have been transported to the ribosomes to build our protein. And at this point, they're just building a basic protein structure. If you remember from macromolecules, proteins are assembled from monomers known as amino acids, and they build polypeptides. So the ribosome is going to build a simple, basic polypeptide. All right, next step. After we've built the bear, we're going to move the bear on a conveyor belt to the specialist rooms. So here's where the important features are going to be added. Like if you look at this bear over here, it looks very different from this raw process, right? From this raw initial bear build. Now we're adding on special features, like we're going to give it some fur, and we're going to give it things like eyes and maybe a bow tie, or here we're giving it sunglasses and a little leather bomber jacket. Okay, so what have we done to the bear? We've modified it and finished it so that it has its final shape. That is going to be like the rough ER job, okay? So here in this picture, the blue is our rough ER. We see the ribosomes are on the rough ER. So after the protein leaves the ribosome, it's going to move through the ER, and as it does so, it's going to be modified and finalized into its proper structure. So with the bear, we added on all sorts of bells and whistles, like, the glasses and the jacket and the buttons and stuff like that. But with a protein, it's all about how it's going to be folded. Okay, once it's folded properly, then we're ready for the next step. So let's jump back to the factory. And in the factory, we see that the bears are now being moved to a shipping center. So we have this completed bear, right? It has all of its finished products on it. It is complete and ready. And now what we need to do is come over here and we're going to box it up. Okay, so a shipping center is responsible for packaging and getting ready for shipment. Okay, in the cell, that is going to be the organelle, the Golgi. Okay, so what you're going to see in this picture here, this little green guy, this is like going to grab the protein product. You see the protein is inside, and we're going to move from the ER to the Golgi. All right, the protein is that little pink X shape there. And as it moves to the Golgi, it needs to move in something. So what has it been packaged into? Well, it's been packaged into something called a vesicle. So this vesicle is like this little temporary wrapping that is going to move from the ER to the Golgi. And then as the protein moves through the Golgi, you see it comes out the other side in a new package. Okay? So again, think of the Golgi like a UPS is the packaging and shipping center. So now we have our protein packaged and ready to go for final export, just like our bear. So what's the last step here? The last step is that we need to get the bears out of the factory. So in other words, we have the bears packaged in their boxes. They've been loaded onto the trucks, aka the vesicles. And now what happens? The trucks have to leave the factory. And so in order to leave a factory, you need to go through the gate. Well, all factories have those electronic gates that open and close. And so you have to wait for the gate to open, and then you can leave the factory. And that's going to allow the trucks to move the bears to wherever their final destination is, most likely to a shop or something like that. Well, what's the final destination here? Unknown at this point, but in order to move from the vesicle and get out of the cell, we're going to have to cross through the cell membrane. And the way this is going to happen down here is that this vesicle, okay, you see it moving to the cell membrane here, it's actually going to bump right up against the cell membrane, and it's going to fuse to the cell membrane. So it's going to attach and become part of the cell membrane. And as it does that, it dumps the protein product outside of the cell. And then your protein is free, and the protein can move wherever it needs to go in the body, maybe to a different tissue or something like that, for whatever it is. So let's just review this all together. Okay, now we're on the same page. Looking at the endomembrane system, it is a group of organelles that work together doing different jobs to accomplish one overall goal: creating and exporting a protein product. So first, we start in the nucleus. So step one, in the nucleus, the DNA is going to be copied. So we get a copy of the gene, and the gene is going to contain the instructions for how to build our protein. Then we move out of the nucleus to a ribosome. The ribosome is going to be like a machine, and it's going to read the instructions and use the instructions to make the basic polymer of proteins. It is going to make the basic polypeptide. Then from this little ribosome, it's going to start moving through the ER. And as it moves through the ER, it's going to get modified and finalized. And what that means is that polypeptide chain will be twisted and folded into its proper 3D structure. All right. Then we need to leave the ER, and we're going to move in a vesicle, a little temporary transporter. We're going to move to the Golgi. When the protein gets to the Golgi, it is going to be prepared for shipment. So we're going to package it into another vesicle, which is down here. And we're also going to get it ready to be shipped. Where is it being shipped? It's being shipped out of the cell. So then that vesicle is going to act like a delivery truck. It is going to move it to the cell membrane, which is like the gate of the cell. And it's going to fuse the vesicle to the cell membrane and dump the protein outside of the cell. And then that protein will go to wherever it is destined to go. Okay, so that's just a quick little review of the endomembrane system. Make sure that you've taken good notes, and if you have any questions, please let me know.